Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Rini Nuryanti. I studied at University of Makassar, especially English Education Department. And now I will explain about kinds of text. First, recount text. Recount text is a text which retells an incident that occurred in the past. Generic structure of the recount text is orientation, event, and reorientation. Orientation provides an introduction to the events that occur, leaders involved in the incident, place, and time the event occurred. Event contains the fabric of events or incidents in the story of experience. This section may consist of several events. And the last, reorientation. Reorientation contains a summary or cover story. Language features of recount text is using the past tense and using conjunction. For example, then, before, and after. And the next slide, this is an example of the recount text. The title is The Monkey. The next is discussion text. Discussion text is the text which presents a problematic discourse. This problem will be discussed from different viewpoints. The purpose of the discussion text is to consider a problem or issue from many points of view to assist in gaining a more complete understanding so that decision can be made or a solution devised. Generic structure of the discussion text is issue, arguments, and conclusion. Issue lies in the first paragraph that contains the placement problem or issue to be discussed. And if you want to write a discussion text, choose a topic of controversial issues so that you will have a lot of arguments. Arguments have two parts. There are supporting points and contrasting points. In these supporting points, in this section, the authors presents the opinion that support the issue. In each paragraph, supporting points consist of two components, including the main idea and elaboration or description of the main idea. Contrasting points, in this section, the authors present further arguments against the issue. As in paragraph, supporting points also present two contrasting points forming components, namely main idea and elaboration or explanation of the main idea. And the last is conclusion. In this section, the discussion usually ends with a summing up which may include a decision or recommendation. And the next is language feature of the discussion text. In the making discussion text, authors should consider the use of language that is commonly applied, such as using simple present tense, using modalities like must, should, would, may, and etc. And using additive, contrastive, and causal connections such as similarly, however, furthermore, on the other hand, and etc. And this is example of the discussion text. The next is descriptive text. Descriptive text is a text that describes place, people, or specific objects. So in the descriptive text, we can explain people, place, or things we see or have. Generic structure of the descriptive text is identification and description. Identification, in this section, we identify a person, place, or thing in particular that will be described. and description. This section describes the detailed description of the person, place, or thing is certain includes part, quality, and characteristic. In this section, the person who reads the descriptive text should have an idea of what kind of people, place, objects are described. And language feature of descriptive text is explaining something special, generally use the simple present tense, and using the verb attributively and identifying, for example, have, were, is, are, and etc. And this is an example of the descriptive text. Next is narrative text. Narrative text aims to entertain listeners or readers. These texts relate to real experience, imagination, or the complicated events leading to a crisis and ultimately find a completion. Narrative text is a characteristic element of the conflict and resolution, and you can even find the conflict and its solution is more than one. And generic structure of the narrative text is orientation, complication, resolution, and reorientation. Orientation such as characters recognition, time and place. Complication are the develop of the conflict. Resolution are completion of the conflict. And the last, reorientation, are change in the character or the lesson that can be learned from the story. This section is optional, doesn't have to exist in a text. And language features of narrative text is using the past tense, usually preceded by time adverbs like a long time, once upon a time, in faraway land. Use of conjunction as, then, after, then, that, before, and etc. And this is example of the narrative text. And the next slide is explanation text. Explanation text is text which retell processing relating to forming of natural, social, scientific, and cultural phenomena. Explanation text is to say why and how about the forming of the phenomena. It's often found in science, geography, and history textbooks. Generic structure of the explanation text is general statements are stating the phenomenon issues which are to be explained, and sequence explanation stating a series of steps which explain the phenomena. Language features of the explanation text is featuring generic participants such as sun, rain, and etc. and using chronological connection such as to begin with, next, and etc. Using passive voice pattern and using simple present tense. And this is example of the explanation text. And the next slide is review text. Review text is one of the type of English text aimed at reviewing the work in the form of movie, books, and other objects to determine the quality, advantage, and disadvantage that the work was intended for the reader or listener public. Generic structure of the review text is introduction or orientation, evaluation, interpretation, and summary. Introduction or orientation, like any of English text to another, on the first paragraph of a review text contains an overview of the work or material will be reviewed. An overview of the work or the object could be a name, usability, and so forth. Evaluation, providing a detailed description of the work or material that was reviewed, could be parts of the work or object, uniqueness and equality, but don't give much description of the work or the objects. As we review the text like teach, the prospective buyers, and it's not good. Evaluation of the work or in the objects as far as needed by the buyer in the most correct. The term is used in the second paragraph of its structure is not far from the word good or no, work or objects. In the evaluation section, usually consisting of more than one evaluation. Next is interpretation. The author gives his own views on the review from authors or objects. And the last is summary. The author gives the reader the conclusion of the works or objects that have been reviewed. After giving an explanation on the evaluation and writer's own views and interpretation, the authors come to comment whether it works or valuable objects in review or not to prospective buyers. And the language features of the review text is using the present tense, focus on specific participants, using adjective, for example, like, bad, good, valuable, smart, stupid, and etc. Using long and complex clauses and using metaphor. And this is example of review text. The title is Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows by Derek Dodson. And the next is news item. News item is factual text which informs events of the day which are considered newsworthy or important. Generic structure of the news item is newsworthy events, background events, and source. Newsworthy events recount the event in summary. Background event elaborate what happened, to whom, and in what circumstance. And the last source, comment by participants in witness to an authorities expert on the event. And the language feature of the news item is short, telegraphic information about stories summarized in one sentence headline. Second, use of material or action process to retell story. Use of projection verbal process in source text. Focus on circumstantial meanings, and often dramatic use of participant structure. And this is in this slide. This is example of the news item. And the last of the kinds of text is procedure text. Procedure text is the text that describes how something is done through a series of action or steps. Procedure text can be the step to make something or use something. This step must be done in accordance with a coherent sequence of numbers. It was different from the tip. Tip can do without having to follow the sequence of numbers. Generic structure of the procedure text is aim or goal, materials, and steps. Aim or goal propose or introduce something that will be made or done or performed. Usually appear in the text as the title. Materials. Describe materials or needed materials. This section is optional. Steps, list steps in making or doing something. And language feature of the procedure text is use the simple present tense, often in the form of imperative sentence. The second is use temporal conjunction like first, then, next, finally, and etc. Or numbering to indicate sequence and using the material. And this is example of the procedure text. The title is how to send email via internet. Okay, I think that's all for the explanation about the kind of text. Thank you very much for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.